The president calling for bipartisan action and his critics saying he bears the blame. Where do we go from here? Let's bring in the president of the National Hispanic Leadership Conference, Reverend Samuel Rodriguez, and the Republican governor of Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson. Thank you both for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Governor, I want to start with you because of your background with Homeland Security as well. There were calls today for more aggressive monitoring and taking on of the white supremacy issue. Is the government not doing that? What are we doing to track that?
Well, they're doing a lot, but I go back to my background in the 80s, and for 30 years I've been supporting law enforcement. I was a U.S. attorney in which we took on the white supremacists, and it was a very violent group. They also had those that listened to their leaders that went out and did violent acts on their own. We had success because we went after them aggressively. We used intelligence. We used the tool of law enforcement. It reduced itself in terms of the active role of white supremacists, and then we see a resurgence of it in recent years. And so part of it is because the FBI put all of their resources to a large extent in fighting jihadist terrorism. We need to rebalance that. We need to make sure that we are covering the waterfront of domestic terrorism as well as foreign terrorism that might hit us. As governor of Arkansas, I've been concerned about this. I've been briefed by law enforcement. I know they're very engaged in looking at the rise of white supremacy, not just here, but across the country. I know that I've talked to Jewish groups, and they're very concerned the security of their synagogue. And so we have to make sure that we as leaders say this is unacceptable in America. Secondly, we need to engage more significantly in supporting law enforcement, giving the resources they need, more intelligence tools. And then as leaders, we need to continue to speak out that this is not acceptable in America.
Yeah, and from what we're hearing, there were reports that the shooter in Ohio had different ideology, that he was motivated by other things. And so, I mean, it's hard to pinpoint anything as a cause for all of these shootings, but there are some commonalities, we're told. An LA Times op-ed, some researchers said that they'd studied every mass shooting since 1966. This is what they found. They said the vast majority of mass shooters have experienced early childhood trauma. Second, practically every one of them had reached an identifiable crisis point in the weeks or months that may have tipped people off leading up to the shooting. Third, most of them had studied the actions of other shooters and sought validation for their motives. And fourth, the shooters all had the means to carry out their plans. Reverend, so much of this does look back to the backgrounds of these shooters and the fact that they have, in many cases, been in pain themselves. They've been marginalized. They've been bullied. There are some common threads, it seems.
There are some common threads indeed. It's an act of violence. It's an act of darkness fueled by, in this, as it pertains to El Paso, nativism, xenophobia, white nationalism. We live in dark times. Accordingly, we need to come together. The only way to address these issues is for us to go beyond the partisan divide and stop politicizing. As a Hispanic American, I am disgusted by the individuals that are politicizing what took place in Ohio and El Paso for political gain. That's morally reprehensible. We need to come together. We need to build a firewall against bigotry, hatred, white nationalism, white supremacy, and simultaneously address the mental issues that motivate and compel some of these individuals to execute many.
Well, and Governor, something in the American Thinker under the headline, El Paso, the real causes of mass shootings, they say it all comes down to morality or to a lack of morality. Say what you will about TV, the internet, video games, violence, or mass murder. It can't be right or wrong if there is no right or wrong. Governor, have we lost our moral compass in this country?
Well, I think everybody understands where the line is, but you've got people, because of hate, that are willing to cross that line. What motivates them? What causes them to do that? How can we identify them? I think it's very important that you recognize that when they're going in as white supremacists, they're not going in with a vest on to blow themselves up. They want to preserve their life in most instances. That's why the death penalty is important whenever you have these instances of mass murder. So the enforcement side is critically important. You mentioned the mental health side. And in Arkansas, we've tried to address, through having some comprehensive crisis stabilization units across the state where law enforcement, when they identify someone with a mental health problem, can refer them to a stabilization unit to help them get the mental health services they need. This is what we need to do, is to move mental health services more to the community, make sure that we're able to identify mental health problems and to address them. I would like to see Congress have a bipartisan review of our mental health laws, make some recommendations to the states, but also address this nationally to get this better in balance, to make sure that we can have protection.
Okay, let me bring the Reverend in here. Final word to you, Reverend, about whether you think this is a cultural issue.
Shannon, we need three things. One, we need to teach our children and our children's children that every single individual carries the image of God, citizen and immigrant alike. Number two, we need a spiritual awakening. We need a spiritual awakening in America in the name of Jesus. And number three, we need comprehensive immigration reform. That's what we need in America to solve these issues.
We'll see if there is some common ground in the days ahead. Reverend, Governor, thank you both very much.
Thank you.